It's loading on all the other shows. Let's see. Come on. Hopefully it connects to that other one, so hang in there. There we go. Okay. Hold on here. Go for it.
Okay, so sorry about that, folks. Anyhow, where we left off, we are commanded to live assuming that the last days will occur in our lifetime. That produces the proper Christian priorities and behavior. And the interesting thing about that is, if we're making that assumption, then we should be able to see a lot of the end times actors on the world stage already. And I think we do, and we'll look at that next. Okay, so the uses of prophecy are to certify a prophet and his message, signs and foreshadowings to watch for. We certainly have the example at the first coming. We were told in Zechariah, behold, your king is coming to you. He's just and having salvation, lowly and riding on a donkey, a foal of a donkey. And other places where we're told that then what was fulfilled was spoken of by Jeremiah the prophet, saying, and they look at the 30 pieces of silver. So the whole idea of 30 pieces of silver used to buy the potter's field and the arriving on a donkey's colt were two things that were prophesied associated with the first coming. Second coming, we have several things that we need to be looking for. The falling away, the man of lawlessness, and the abomination of desolation in the holy place. So that would be some of the things we'll look at in the coming lessons. Next. Okay, now this is a drawing by Clarence Larkin back in the early 1900s, but it shows what he called the mountain peaks of prophecies, that back at the early times when the prophets were looking, they could see events happening like the arrival of Jesus, the arrival of the Holy Spirit, the Antichrist, and the millennial kingdom, but they didn't really see the things that happened in the valleys. The church age that we're in right now, that would be an extended period of time leading up to the Antichrist, and the millennial kingdom itself being something that would last for 1,000 years in real-time history. So the thing that we want to look at is how to sort all that out in light of the fact that we are sitting in the valley of the church age where they didn't see that at all. Next. Okay, so if we look at Daniel's little horn for the Antichrist, we can see that this is going to tell us an awful lot. I was watching, and the same horn was making war against the saints and prevailing against them until the Ancient of Days came. And judgment was made in favor of the saints and of the Most High. And the time came for the saints to possess the kingdom. Thus he said, the fourth beast shall be a fourth kingdom on the earth, which will be different from all other kingdoms, and devour the whole earth, trample it, and break it to pieces. The 10 horns are 10 kings who shall arise from this kingdom, and another shall arise after them. He shall be different from the first ones, and shall subdue 3 kings. He shall speak pompous words against the Most High. He shall persecute the saints of the Most High, and shall intend to change times and law. And when the saints shall be given into his hands for a time, times, and half a time. So if you look at the prophetic timeline, you see 580 BC is where we had Nebuchadnezzar's kingdom in the exile of the Jews to Babylon. 539 BC, the Medo-Persian Empire took over. 330 BC, Alexander the Great conquered. And then the fourth kingdom has been slowly existing out through time, coming to our time now, where we are facing a beast each of these beasts is a world government. And we're seeing a world government being formed right now, but before our very eyes, which will be doing the things that it talks about here, especially in persecuting the saints. And we've seen that happen throughout much of this history. So that is one of the things that we have to look forward to. Each of these points will be covered in the coming lessons. Next. Next there, Connie.
Oh, I thought that was the next one. I'm sorry. I was reading it myself.
Okay. And
is that the one you're wanting, the Daniel one there?
Just a second here till I get there.
I'm sorry.
Yeah. Okay, no, you did it. I was reading it off my other slides where I could see it better.
Oh, okay.
Okay, so Daniel, why trust Daniel? Well, Daniel somehow knew what Nebuchadnezzar had dreamed, which was pretty credible in its own right. Nebuchadnezzar did not tell him his dream. He said, you tell me what I dreamed and what it means. And Daniel was able to do so, telling him about this great statue that represented Nebuchadnezzar's kingdom and the kingdoms of Medo-Persia and Greece and the final terrible beast. His prophecies were so accurate that many historians swore it was written after the fact. In fact, you see that claimed by a lot of people that said that it was somebody other than Daniel that wrote it many centuries later, and therefore that's how it was able to predict the rise and fall of future empires. It predicted Palm Sunday to the day, nearly 500 years in advance. That was Daniel chapter 9. The thing is that we have found a Dead Sea Scroll proving that Daniel was written hundreds of years before the fact. So the biggest thing is that Jesus endorsed Daniel and said he was a prophet and we should believe him. So next. This is where Jesus in Matthew 24 confirms Daniel as a prophet. Therefore, when you see the abomination of desolation spoken of by Daniel the prophet standing in the holy place, then let those who are in Judea flee to the mountains. So this is Jesus giving us a clear statement of whatever the abomination of desolation is, will be something that will require us to flee to the mountains, at least if you're in Judea. And this is the ultimate abomination of desolation, is an urgent, instantaneous event that causes us to have to bug out. So this is why we take Daniel extra seriously as Christians. Next. So how important is prophecy? Well, we don't need to study prophecy to be saved. We do need to be obedient to be saved. And
you okay?
Yeah, I just am trying to get to where I can read my fine print. So, okay. So, not everyone who says to me, Lord, Lord, will enter the kingdom of heaven, but only the one who does the will of my Father who's in heaven. So while we need to believe in the right way. But while they were on their way to buy oil, the bridegroom arrived. The virgins who were ready went in with him to the wedding banquet, and the door was shut, and the others did not go in with him. So since doing is a form of works, it can't be that doing is what saves. It must be the kind of believing that produces obedience that saves. And Jesus' repeated commands to watch will be obeyed by such believers. To do this, we need to know what to watch for and what to do when the watched for event happens. So that is where we're going to leave it for today. We've basically pointed out that we have these prophecies that will give us insight into what it is we should be watching for and what to do when that happens. And we'll pick that up next week if you go to the last slide, Connie. And we'll talk more about what these things have predicted, how it affects God's plan for history, and what the prophecies are that we still need to see, and how that leads to a pretty clear and damning evidence that Islam is a significant factor in that. And so that's where we will leave it for now, and we'll be willing to take questions at this time.
Okay, hang in there. I'm coming. Here we go. Hey, Stan.
Hey there, Connie.
Hey, I'm joining your show.
All right, that's great.
That's kind of cool. All right, so yay! All right, I got some questions. Everybody, Stan's Bible Lecture back here on Blue Rock Talk. So exciting that Stan is back and doing well. Keep in mind that we are on a bunch of Facebooks. We are on Vim, which is a cryptocurrency on Steemit, and we are on and YouTube, of course, and some Twitters as well. So thank those of you that came back on after it went away. I don't know, Stan was just gone. I'm glad he's back again, though. So Stan, I got questions, just so you'll know. Sometimes when you go next and I'm kind of hanging in there, I'm over there. I'm at a Facebook or a Twitter getting some of these questions. So so we got quite a few, and anybody else that wants to, that's in our live chat right now on YouTube, just put them in all caps so I can see them. Ah, there's one right there. Okay, and I hope to be able to get to all of them. So, you ready, Stan?
Yeah, come at me.
All right, bring it on. All right, so it's kind of a mixture. You know, everybody also wants to know how you're doing. So let's ask that real quick. How are you doing health-wise?
Well, I'm fully recovered from my heart attack, and sitting here probably a little low on energy from some of the chemicals they still keep pumping into me, as far as that's concerned. So I'm maybe not as energetic as you might expect, but I guess my biggest limitation right now is just I do have a certain amount of paralysis in one leg due to a blood clot that pinched a nerve, and therefore I can't climb upstairs to my office, and therefore I'm doing it from a lazy boy recliner in my living room. So that's why you see the different background than usual.
Okay. Well, is that going to be okay?
Well, they say that it takes about a month per inch for nerves to grow back, and I have the entire upper quad of my left leg is pretty much paralyzed, and so I'm going to have to exercise it. I am getting some feeling back in it now, and I am able to walk, using a stroller walker kind of thing. So yeah, right now I'm a little bit hobbled, but still there in spirit.
And I know you'll give it all you've got. So, I mean, nothing's going to take you down. Look what you just made it through. So thank you for that. Thank you for that will that you have. And hey, we can all go back to the Moab video that we took of you going, what is it? Thou shalt not pass. What was that line?
Well, that's something that Gandalf said to the Balrog, I guess. You shall not pass.
That's it. And then, of course, the next shot is me dead, where I honestly thought you were going to have to call 911 on me. And you were taking a picture of Connie on the floor, down and out. Stan, don't take pictures. Call 911. Okay, so in some of these, I didn't get all their names. I was just trying to get them really quickly so I wouldn't be doing this number to you. But so I don't know everybody that asked these questions, but I want to thank you for asking them. Anybody else that has a question, please put it in all caps. So what is the difference of the rapture and or the apocalypse, and is there a difference?
Well, the apocalypse is a description of basically the end time events where Jesus returns and shellacks all the people who were persecuting Christians. Okay, so that is different from the rapture, where when he returns, raptures all those who are believers in him. They're caught up to be with him in the air. They become part of his returning army, clothed in white, as we saw in that one verse, and riding on horses behind him. So, then what he does is come down and do a lot of the wrath of God type actions.
Well, when you mention these things like God comes down and this happens and this happens, someone had asked earlier, and I don't know if they reworded it for me, but as you know, on Blue Rock Talk, we have Far Out Thursdays and Bigfoot Fridays and things like that. So I got a couple of questions of people, which is great. I love all the cross promotion and collaboration, so we're all open-minded, so we all learn all these things as well as the cryptocurrency, right? So everybody pulls in that's open-minded, and so they want to know, because going back to the Moab video that we have, we see rock art, right? And we see this alien-like thing. And you had showed very much interest in it, as, I was going, yay! We were all excited about that. So they want to know, where does that fit in? Where do the aliens fit into all this that you talk about?
Well, that's a real good question. Whether they are aliens or spiritual beings, demonic in origin, is probably the big question. I think that we do have, looking back at the story of the Nephilim and the things that were told about right before the story of the flood, where we have the sons of God coming down and mating with the daughters of men to produce giants and other. Oh,
you're going back to the Bigfoot now.
Yeah.
That was another question coming up. So, okay, you're hitting that one too. Okay.
Okay, so we do have intervention of demonic beings, fallen angels, and it could be that is what is being shown there, as opposed to beings from another planet. I don't have any biblical evidence that there is life on other planets that would be engaging with us at this time. If it is, then it's not covered in the Bible.
And those Bible Blue Rockers or other Blue Rockers out there, you want to discuss that with Stan at one point. He's open to it. He's totally open to it. We had it set up for Flat Earthers, right? And the Flat Earther dude didn't show up. You were ready to go. It's like, man, he didn't show. What? Come on, what's that mean? So Stan's always ready to fight it. Keep in mind, he's a former rocket scientist and worked on the Mars rover. So, hey, as time goes on, and somebody else had asked, so I'll ask it since we're in that arena right now. They said, will you ever go out bigfooting with Connie to understand that world, because I'm in it and I'd like you to tell me how that fits together. And I have some people that will pull out verses that actually go with the Bigfoot. So they want to know if you'll ever go out with me on a Bigfoot trip and learn for yourself. Yeah,
I wouldn't rule it out. I certainly would be interested in encountering anybody like that I might get a chance to meet. So, yeah.
It'll change your world, but you may be able to pull some of those things together, because until you see it, you won't believe it. It's just the way it is. Okay, let's see. Let me go over here real quick, and I'll hold on to these for you. Miss Cavs fan, Do you see the one world government being the United Nations?
Well, there's a little bit of question is exactly how this one world government comes into existence. Certainly, the United Nations could play a significant role in that, but we also have the hegemon, if you will, of big banks and all of their influence that they have over the world. The American British empire, if you will, has grown enormously powerful and seeking to enforce its rules on everybody in the world. So there's that. Then there's the whole issue of Islam, which we'll look at next week, where we're in the process of seeing Islam being explicitly anti-Christian, and therefore it may be that all these different forces are merging together in some way that we can't quite foresee right now. Certainly, you can look at Islam taking over Europe by immigration and reproduction much faster than anyone would believe. So within 20 years, I think that Islam will be a majority of Europe. And so there's a lot of those kind of things that are mixed together in this ultimate beast. We're certainly, I think, building the power of the beast with the current American system. But you also see China coming up with its own beast-like system, which is basically giving a way of monitoring and controlling all the people with a control system that's quite scary. So all of these different things are playing together, and I don't know right now which one will emerge, but I believe that at some point Islam will take over some of the power of the existing American and British empire, and then you'll have the worst of both worlds.
I got to ask you this because I know I'm going to get questions on it. So the Chinese, you got something scary coming up. You're talking about, isn't Dan working with the Chinese? And his motto is totally liberty and property and wonderfulness. Yeah,
I don't know exactly what he may be doing with the Chinese, but we have multiple forces going on, pushing and pulling on this, and certainly anything we can do to generate freedom for the Chinese people is a good thing, and I think that that's the viewpoint he would look at it from.
Okay, let's see. Everybody's saying they're so glad you're back and praying for renewed strength for you.
No, I certainly appreciate that.
Absolutely. And nothing happened to me. Somebody asked what happened to me. I'm good. Maki 7405 says, we need to get untangled from NATO because of that. And yes, we are live.
Yeah, certainly. Well, we're seeing the tendrils of global beast system forming in parts, and the question is, how will that ultimately become one world government? And I don't have any clear insight as to how that's going to happen, but you can certainly see the pieces, parts, being put in place in every major government.
Well, how big do you see the Catholics?
How big do I see the Catholics?
In all of this and all of the change? Because they seem to, have a lot of power.
Yeah, well, that it certainly is true that the Protestant view is that the Pope is a representative of the Antichrist system. And that is something else we can look at in a future lesson. But
interesting. Okay.
The idea, if you go back to Calvin and Wesley, you'll see that they talk about the Muhammad or the Islamic forces and the papal forces being twin horns of the Antichrist. So you may find that the office of Pope is one day occupied by the Antichrist. So he takes his place in the temple of God, showing himself that he is God. And certainly the Pope claims to be the vicar of Christ. He's referred to himself as God on earth in past instances of the Pope. And so it's possible that that will wind up becoming a major component of this ultimate system, whatever it is.
What do you think the last trumpet will sound like?
Well, I don't know. I would say ram's horn or something.
I mean, yeah, I guess they were asking, like, what is it? What, I mean, you know, it's a symbol, right? Most likely it's just a symbol. It's not like somebody doing that.
Yeah, I mean, I would think that it would be a supernatural sound that everybody on the planet hears. But, you know, I don't know. It could be symbolic, but keep in mind that the trumpets that are used to celebrate the Feast of Trumpets in the Jewish holidays in the fall are real trumpets that are sounded, and the last trumpet may be a reference to the sounding of that trumpet in the last day.
Okay. Please put your questions in all caps in the live chat so I can see them. Make sure you do that. Thanks. Yes, we are live, Pat. Okay, so we are told to be watchful. What do we watch for?
Well, we're going to look at a lot of that coming up in the next couple lessons, but we are watching for the emergence of a one world government, of a general falling away, which we see happening right now. An entire generation turning away from belief in Christianity. And so we'll see those kind of things. We'll see this abomination of desolation, which will take place. And we'll have to look at all the different previous instances where that has happened in type. And that'll be part of next week's lesson.
Is cryptocurrency a part of all this? Is it a sign?
Well, I think cryptocurrency is a dual-edged sword. It could be used to implement the beast system that prevents anybody from buying or selling without the mark of the beast. It could also be a cure or antidote for that by providing us an alternative for buying and selling outside of the beast system. So I'm looking at it from that point of view in the things that I'm doing.
And be prepared for this question, but because your son is so big in the crypto world, this question is, do you think your son is any part of this?
Well, I think that he's someone who sees what he's doing as providing an antidote or an alternative for the beast system, if you think of it that way.
Okay, if we expect, this is referring to one of your slides. If we expect this daily to happen daily, you had said expect this daily, and nothing happens, isn't this false hope, which is very cruel?
Well, no, we're told to watch, and we're told that the time is near, but we don't know when, what day or hour it will be. And so I think we are expected to be watching for these major signs that are being talked about in the prophecy, and being ready, in particular, to survive a situation where suddenly Christians come under persecution and are denied the right to buy or sell without taking the mark of the beast. And so when that comes, you better have your spam stored up in your basement.
I had some of that last night myself, and might have some leftovers today of that. That's funny that you brought that up. I love that stuff. It's so good.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. The last question, unless some more show up here, is you talked about the Dead Scrolls often. What about the ones that are missing? What about that information that we're not getting that we know or we believe that are missing?
Well, I think we have copies or fragments of Dead Sea Scrolls of all the Old Testament books, except I think the book of Esther, I think, may have not been found. But we do have fairly complete segments of all the different books that are part of that. So I'm not sure what ones that are missing that they're referring to.
Okay. I know too, and this is just me, people talk about a lot of books that are missing. What do you think of all that? Wasn't there supposed to be curses for people to take anything out of the Bible? So what about all the other?
Well, yeah, it does say
that
nothing should be added or subtracted from the scriptures. Okay, now there's a question of what was that referred to? That actually appears in the last chapter of Revelation, and is talking presumably about the book of Revelation, not the entire Bible. So it's possible that there are other books that did not get selected at the Council of Nicaea in 300 AD, but those were all selected based upon apostolic authority, that they could be traced back solidly and reliably to one of the apostles who knew Jesus or one of their assistants, in the case of Luke and Mark, who worked for Paul and Peter respectively. So those books that got put in the Bible are ones who had that pedigree, and other ones did not. And so, those showed up in the so-called Apocrypha, a set of other texts that are not viewed by mainstream Christianity as being authoritative, but still might contain interesting information, but not considered inspired.
Those of you out there right now, thank you for joining us here on Stan's Bible Lecture. I'm going to show you, down below you can order, there's a link, you can order some Bible Blue Rocker coffee mugs. Yay! I think that's so cool. We're going to have to put Stan's face on one of them in the future. So I'm going to ask you one last question. I'll let you answer it, and you can close it out the way you want to, okay? But that question is, let me get exactly the way it was written. That is, and I'll pass it on to you, and that is, Stan, when do you believe that the end is near? Do you believe it'll happen in your lifetime? Is that the reason you are back? That's the purpose.
Well, yeah, there's some question in my mind is how long my lifetime might be after what I've just been through. But yeah, I think it could easily happen in the next 30 years. But I don't have any real insight into that other than to say that I am living my life with the assumption that it is coming and is going to emerge and happen very quickly. If you think about how long it took for the events of World War II to blow up and become earth-shattering, in less than a decade, everything was turned upside down. I think that the same thing could happen. We also know that the total number of people who were involved in the American Revolution was a small percentage of the population of America participated in that revolution. So you wouldn't need more than probably 10% Islamic population to tip the scales on a revolution in the Western world. So that could come very quickly at any time. And so I'm making the assumption that I'm going to be ready for that. So that's, we'll look at all of the different things that lead us to believe that Islam is a major player in the end times anti-Christian movement. And we'll look at all that next week or two. So at that case, I guess I'm signing off for today. thank you, everybody, for being here and listening to what I have to say. And we'll get you in more details next week.